When you Google the word recidivism in South Africa, one of the first things it tells you is that South Africa's approach to punishing criminals is a catastrophic failure. So let that sink in. South Africa's approach to punishing criminals is not just a failure, but a catastrophic failure at that. So my question is this. If it is worldwide knowledge that our punishing systems are a failure, why isn't our leaders doing something about it to make the whole process more effective? Are we as South Africans just too complacent? Or are we simply just too used to complaining that we don't want things to change because then we will have nothing to complain about? Well, I refuse to believe that the latter two questions have an affirmative answer. I feel that it is a case of out of sight, out of mind. I welcome you back to my channel here on Bugasiswe, where we have real talk about real life issues. My name is Harriet Lucas. I'm considered a serial offender because I have been convicted of several offenses. After spending 18 years in jail for a murder committed in 2004, upon my release in 2021, I've taken it upon myself to advocate and speak about the reintegration of offenders back into society and everything with regards to that. I acknowledge my president and everybody else that is involved with the decision making in our country. I also greet each and every viewer that has tuned in. You are most welcome. As I've mentioned in my opening statement, I believe that one of the causes of our high recidivism rate stems from the fact that very few people actually are aware or realize the implications of what a high recidivism rate means for us as a country. It is indeed a case of out of sight, out of mind. And what I mean by that is, when a crime is committed in society, the media and society screams for justice. Once justice has been meted out against the perpetrator, attention is then redirected to the next big sensation. Current sensations in our country at the moment includes the Senzo Mayiwa murder trial and also the asbestos case against the former PA of Mr. Ace Magashule. The list goes on and the sensationalism has no end. But what about all the other past sensations? And even the non-high profile cases where people were convicted of crimes and sentenced to jail? What about the 57-year-old male from Phillipstown who was convicted and sentenced to 120 years imprisonment in February of this year in the Daar Magistrates Court for 18 rape and other child-related sexual offences? Or what about the serial murderer Themba Vilakazi, famously known as the railway killer, who in 2005 was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 36 years after claiming that Satan encouraged him to brutally kill 3 people along the railways of Pretoria? The list goes on. What about all the other lesser known convicted criminals in our jails? Judging by the recidivism rate of our country, more than half of them, in fact, according to statistics, almost all of them will come out of jail and reoffend. So then, What I ask is the purpose of having these institutions called prisons. I mean, if you go to a university, an institution like a university, you come out of there being qualified and skilled in some kind of academic field in order for you to find employment. And then if you go to an institution like a hospital, when you are sick, when you come from there, you are partially cured or fully cured of whatever ailment sent you there in the first place. But if you go to a prison, which in theory should be a place of correction for committing a crime, you come out more determined than before to commit another crime. So that, dear people, is the center point of my argument against the efficacy of the rehabilitation systems in our country. If we do not speak about this, and if we keep chasing after sensations, our reality will eventually overwhelm us. We are only 10% short of having a full 100% recidivism rate. When will we as society, government, NGOs, and even private sector, when will we wake up and advocate for the changes to the rehabilitation process? And when I speak about changes, I'm not referring to harsher sentences or the implementation of the death penalty. No. Fighting fire with fire has never solved any problems. The changes I speak of refers to the quality of programs and methods used by the DCS to rehabilitate offenders. Currently, the most common form of rehabilitation consists of prisoners being locked up in a cell for between 18 and 23 hours per day. What exactly is it that you think a prisoner will learn from a cell full of other criminals during those grueling idle hours? Do you think that they are teaching each other how to knit jerseys? Or do you think that they are reciting nursery rhymes? In the prisons where they are fortunate enough to be out of their cells for 6 hours of a day, the schedule usually consists of, but is not limited to, manual labor in the workshops where sewing is done, manual labor in prison gardens or farms, manual labor in the washuis where laundry is done, or a school that teaches basic adult education. Any higher education is required to be financed by the prisoner themselves or his or her family. Occasional accredited courses such as electrical, plumbing, etc. are offered to prisoners that are South African citizens, which usually requires you to have a matric certificate. All labor remuneration usually start at between 30 Rand and 60 Rand per month, with an increase of about 2 to 5 Rand after every 6 months. Keep in mind also that these activities solely take place within the 6 hours, which actually becomes 4 hours if you figure in the 1 hour for breakfast and 1 hour where lunch and supper are served together at the same time. There are so many irremeable, disastrous implications to this perceived form of rehabilitation that I don't even know where to start to decipher it all or to break it down for you. But one of the first and most obvious impediments of rehabilitation for me is the many wasted hours prisoners have to spend in a locked cell. I've often heard naive and ignorant people saying, yeah, criminals must go to jail so that they can sit and think about the wrongs that they have committed. Well, the incongruity of that statement is nothing short of ignominious. Any human being, criminal or otherwise, you can only spend so much time on one specific behavioral trait. Everybody makes mistakes. Yes, some mistakes are more catastrophic than others, but still, there should be a space afforded for the correction of a mistake, no matter the severity of the offense. The universe is centered around cause and effect. If humans do not lower their carbon footprint on the earth, global warming will destroy all of us. Hence, we find all kinds of organizations advocating for and implementing strategies towards lowering our carbon footprints in order to save the earth and essentially all of us as humanity. In the same manner, action needs to be taken to change and lower our recidivism rate. Because if we don't, we will never feel safe again in this country. If we don't come up with or implement viable strategies to combat recidivism, our children will never know the joys and freedom of playing in the street or running through the bush. Already, they are being programmed and brainwashed through adverse gadgetry and technology because of being forced to sit indoors because their parents or their caregivers are afraid of the criminals roaming our streets looking for an opportunity to strike. Even if you earn a lot of money and maybe you live in a gated community, nobody is safe from crime. In fact, the more money you have, the bigger target you are for criminals. I'm telling you guys, the only way that we are going to truly beat this is if we deal effectively and decisively with each and every criminal in our jails and the ex-offenders that are released from jail through viable, proven, and tested humane ways of intervention during the entire rehabilitation process. I will reiterate what I've said in many of my previous videos. No one is born a criminal. And no human being, not even an animal, wants to be locked up in a cage. When members of Umkhonto we Sizwe and other stalwarts of the fight for freedom from apartheid, when they were arrested and detained, they had an ideal to hold on to. Many of them furthered their studies while incarcerated through the support of their respective organizations and political parties. For the most part, they were driven by their hunger for equality, and during those long idle hours, they would sing songs of freedom, sharing a unity, a bond that many of us will never get to know or experience. Fast forward this, a few decades later, apartheid has been abolished, and those comrades are now being celebrated and revered as heroes in our society. So, what is left in our prisons? What caliber of persons is it that sits in our prisons? What motivates them? What songs do they sing? being abandoned and doomed to reoffending upon their release, what are they destined for? Who is supporting and financing them to become better versions of themselves? I believe firmly, as South Africans, after having overcome so many challenges as a country, that this too can be overcome, but only as a collective. Let us put to practice what the world perceives us as, which is a nation of Ubuntu. I am because you are. In effect, prisoners reoffend because we as society, government, private sector do not care. Our police are doing a stellar job, especially in recent months with regards to arresting criminals and combating crime. But they are not responsible for the rehabilitation of offenders. And they are not the ones to make sure that those offenders do not reoffend. The DCS and relevant departments needs to step up and up their game, because if they don't, police officers will keep rearresting the same offenders with the same results. Keep in mind also that many ex-criminals come out of jail and recruit new and vulnerable youth within the communities, thereby creating a whole new generation of criminals. The only way to combat this is through changing the mindset and the outlook of each individual prisoner. And that can only be done through professional intervention, not by warders who were taught self-defense or how to operate a key. We need professionals that are skilled in dealing with human behavior. A professional who is trained and skilled in self-analysis and critical thinking, who will encourage positive, self-affirming decision-making in any individual. Such an initiative will not only positively contribute towards lowering our rate of recidivism, but what it will also do is create jobs for the professionals in our country and keep them from seeking employment outside our borders, thereby also positively influencing our fragile economy. Another important intervention I suggest is that of the wasted idle hours allocated to prisoners. Something be done about it. There are so many areas in our country that needs human or manual intervention or labor. The idleness, I believe, creates a culture of laziness. If prisoners can be kept busy productively and humanely, it will encourage them and open them up to the prospects of actually working when they are released from prison. The only thing that idleness instills in criminals is a mindset of sitting and doing nothing, while government and taxpayers' money takes care of all your needs. Prisoners ought to be taught the very important life lesson of how to be responsible for your own life, how to work with money, with people in such a way that will not require a need for reoffending. These are the lessons that they will never learn staring at four walls for 18 to 23 hours a day. As I've mentioned in my previous video, there are many factors to consider in this discussion of the causes of recidivism, and one video on my channel is just not enough to cover all of those areas. Hence, I'm segmenting this topic. So if you want to know more, check out my previous videos and also stay tuned for the next and upcoming installments. You can also find more valuable and in-depth information on recidivism and reoffending by getting yourself a copy of Dr. Sandra Hoffman's book called The Courage to Grow, Crime and Therapy in Society, Lisa's Story. Me, of course, being Lisa. The details will be up on your screen, so go and get yourself schooled. Also, I want to remind you of an event that I will be attending in Tembisa at the Rabasutu Community Hall in October on the 16th. It is called A Celebration of Books, and it will be hosted by none other than Mr. Solimanga. Entrance is free, but only through RSVP, so you need to book a seat. Contact the number on your screen for more details. As the name suggests, this event honors authors from all walks of life. There will be guest speakers, live performances, and also lots of entertainment. So make a date of it. I will be there showcasing my book. So please do stop by for a meet and greet and also to support me in my efforts towards bettering myself and others. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then do so now, please. And if you have any suggestions or remarks, please leave them in the comment section of this video. I look forward to seeing you again in my next installment. Stay blessed and stay informed.